Yes.
A lot better. So, and I said this to him, and I do believe it's a thing, that sometimes you don't realize how much you need a change and how much a change can rejuvenate you until it actually happens. But I especially watching those 2 goals tonight, I was thinking about it pretty deeply. What would the Bruins do if they could do it over again? Here's another question I have for you. If the Panthers win this on Tuesday, if you were voting for the Conn Smythe, what would your ballot look like?
You know, it would probably... Now, I've never voted. Is it 3 names you put on for
3.
the Conn Smythe? Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that tonight too, Elliot, because it's funny you mentioned this. I mean, it's some combo of Bennett and Marchand at the top, and then probably Bobrovsky 3.
You wouldn't put McDavid at all on the ballot?
I mean, I guess you have to see how Game 6 goes, or potentially a Game 7.
Yeah. We're talking about 6. We're just talking about 6.
Okay, they wrap it up in 6.
And let me just say this for the record. I'm not counting out the Oilers.
No, of course not.
It would not be a surprise to me at all if we were back in Edmonton for a Friday night Game 7. I'm talking in this particular situation, if Florida was to win in 6. I would have McDavid 3rd. The question is, who's 1-2?
Right. Because Bennett just he's like automatic on the road. But you think of the magnitude of some of the goals that Marchand scored. Overtime against Toronto changed the series. The double overtime goal in this final. Completely different dynamic going down to Florida. And now 5 through 5 games. I don't think there's a wrong pick there.
Well, but people will think it's a wrong pick one way or the other.
I know.
I think I would probably have Bennett 1 and Marchand 2. But, we'll see. We'll see what happens Tuesday. I was joking that the way this was going when that second one went in, I said to a couple of people, Marchand might get paid more than Marner.
Oh, jeez. Right. Yeah, we'll talk about that later, but Marchand will be lining up the meetings. Everybody will be interested in his services. It's been really something to watch. And I heard him say during the 3rd round against Carolina, like when they lost to Florida in the 1st round a couple years ago, he left the ice that night thinking like that was probably his last true shot, legit shot at winning another Stanley Cup. That's what he felt in the moment, right? Because of how good that team was and the reality of we're probably not putting together a group like that kind of success again. And that was part of what made all of that so painful in the moment. And you knew that one of your best friends, your captain, was retiring, and all the change that inevitably brings. And here he is a couple years later against the team that, he couldn't quite finish the breakaway in the dying seconds of Game 5 of that series. One went away from hoisting a cup with them. Really something how the world works sometimes, particularly in sports. So 4 teams in the 21st century, Elliot, have won the Stanley Cup in the final after going down 3-2. Though Boston in 2011, they won Game 6 at home. Pittsburgh in 2009, Game 6 at home. Tampa in 2004 on the road. Colorado in 2001 on the road.
Right.
And that's what is staring down the Edmonton Oilers. Going down to Florida, and to borrow a line from last year, try to drag them back to Alberta for a Game 7.
Yeah, and you should never... And again, you should never underestimate the Oilers and the complete inability of momentum to go anywhere. It's just interesting watching the Panthers because they lost that game. They really collapsed. And by Saturday morning, they were all repeating the mantra of, like, the first thing Carter Verhaeghe said to the media in his scrum after the morning skate was, we always expect every series to go 7 games, so we're always prepared for it, right?
Yep.
And I remember Gadjevich told me one of the first things that happened with him when he signed in Florida was they told him, this is the way the finals are going to be played, so we're always going to try to play like this, right? So it's drilled into them that expect to go 7 games and expect to always play like this. So you know what you're, in theory, going to get from Florida on Tuesday. Edmonton's got to get to a higher level. Like, this was a flat performance. This was an uninspiring performance. I think if you're looking for positivity out of it, McDavid scores.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ekholm had a rough night. I just do not expect that to happen again. He had a rough night, though. He's too good for that. I would think that Kapanen gets thrown back in. I have a theory, and we'll see. This theory will really be tested on Tuesday. I wonder if something's bothering Klingberg. Like part of me, you know, like, and again, this is just, we were wondering about it. Like, Stetcher doesn't play after the first period, and he's back in, and Stetcher's been very good for him. But it had us wondering if there was an injury there, and I guess we'll see if there's anything to that. Like, I admit that a few of us were talking about that, and it's a pure guess, it's pure conjecture. So we'll see on Tuesday how that stacks up. You know, McDavid scores. You know, that's probably the thing that you're looking at and saying, if it gives you any reason for the Oilers to feel better or anyone there to feel better, it's that McDavid finally got a result. And, you know, we talked about it off the start of the show, but one of the analytics guys I talked to said that McDavid is probably the unluckiest player in the playoffs. If you look at expected goals and the teams that monitor this stuff, and Florida is actually a team that does a lot of work into this, and there's a lot of private data that these teams have that we don't have, and they say that what we have available to us is much better than what you can see publicly. But the guy was telling me that by their metrics, McDavid should have close to 20 goals. He's got now 7. So he's been really below what's expected of him. And maybe you're hoping